Right now we're I guess halfway through the process for the budget. Um, the governor presented his budget. The House passed its version of the budget. That budget is now with the Senate, and the Senate is in the process of writing their version of the budget. Then the two houses have to get together and reconcile what they're going to come up with, and then present something to the governor for signature. So while there's only about a month left in the process, there's still a lot of work that needs to be done. What I wanted to share with you all is what the House Republicans have passed, and it really was the Republicans because, and Renny can correct me if I'm wrong, I don't believe there were any Democrats that supported it.
I don't believe so either.
So it was a Republican budget. What I want to share with you, or what I'm referring to, as the lowlights of the budget. The way I've structured this is I want to kind of give you a high level overview of some of the most egregious lowlights. And then we can spend some time talking about the details and providing some background information to hopefully better inform you so that we can together work to make sure that the voters in Hampton understand what the two Republicans that they elected did or did not do, and maybe get them to change their mind when it comes time to having to vote on the final version. But at the very least, make sure that people know that this is what they did this year, and that, come November of 2022, maybe they shouldn't be reelected so that they can make the same mistakes again the next time they put a budget together. So, with that, let me get started. I'm gonna go through this, and I would ask that everyone kind of mute themselves or keep your questions to yourself. I will try to make a point of stopping periodically to ask people if you want to, if you have a question and want to ask it. So, the only exception to that rule is Renny and Mike. You should feel free to jump in at any time if I'm missing something or have misstated something. Okay.
Yep.
So here we go. So the here, these are some of the lowlights of the budget. I mean, and the first one I think is very important, that as a result of the budget that the Republicans passed, if that goes into effect, it will increase our property taxes. And it will do so because it eliminates $40 million in direct municipal aid to cities and towns. $231,000 of that goes to Hampton. Another 30 goes to Hampton Falls, and 290,000 goes to Seabrook. That's money that the towns were counting on. And if they don't receive it from the state, it's going to have to be made up somewhere else. And that somewhere else is through an increase in property taxes. It defunds $15 million in grants to local communities to pay for previously approved water projects. And that's very important. These are projects that were previously approved, that towns were banking on receiving the money for, budgeted accordingly, and that money is now not going to be available.
Mm-hmm.
And that is going to cost Hampton $577,000. And what's worth noting is that our Republican state representative, Tracy Emmerich, actually, led the fight to take the $15 million out of the budget. And so he, by his, support of that, he is costing Hampton $577,000. The budget also removes $90 million in state aid to support local education. Now, what the state cleverly did, or the House cleverly did, is, they cut the funding, but they also reduced the property taxes, the statewide property tax. So it kind of looks like it was a kind of evened out. But the reality is that that's money that local communities count on to fund their local education. And if that money is not available, it's going to have to come someplace else. And again, that comes from local property taxes to the tune of $168,000 in Hampton, 80,000 in Hampton Falls, and 273,000 in Seabrook.
Chris, did you disaggregate the state aid for Winnicott and include that in there?
I did not. So that's a good point. I only picked it up by town. I'll look at the chart again and see if it has Winnicott broken out.
Yeah, it'll have Winnicott. It'll be a gross number. I don't think it does for the town, but
okay. All right, I will check that. So even without that, if you sum up the numbers in red, that's almost $1 million for Hampton. And I'm sure with the Winnicott dollars, it easily goes over $1 million. The other thing that is included in the House Republican budget is that it continues the practice of sharing only about 22% of the rooms and meals tax with local communities. The way the statute is written is that 40% of the rooms and meals tax is supposed to be shared with local communities. Over the years, the legislature has done what the legislature, does routinely, which is to say, okay, we're going to suspend that provision for the next 2 years. And instead of towns getting 40%, the first year they got 35%, and then the next time it was 30%. Well, it's down to 22%. In full fairness, this is not something that we can blame, exclusively on Republicans, but they could have addressed it. They could have fixed it in this budget, and they chose not to. Okay. Then the budget also it also guts our Social Security, social services safety net. Budget that was approved by the House for Health and Human Services, which is 44% of the overall budget, is $207 million less than what the Department of Health and Human Services says it needs to meet its current commitments. So we're not even talking about increasing it for inflation or any other new services. There's $207 million less than what they need to just do what they were doing this year. It defunds 300 positions, including 22 child protection service workers. And it defunds a 60-bed forensic psychiatric hospital that's needed to address our mental health crisis. And all of this is occurring as we're coming out of a pandemic, which makes you wonder. Renny or Mike, anything that I'm kind of missing there, or?
Well, there's also a back of the budget cut to Health and Human Services, the $250 million.
Is that in addition to the 300 positions?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, also, with the decrease that we are as New Hampshire providing, a lot of this is matching funds from the feds in this particular area, with Health and Human Services. So
right.
When we cut money, it has a double effect of taking money out of the system to help people in New Hampshire.
Yeah, that's one of the things that's so sad, is that the money is available. The money from the federal government is available, but in order to get that money, the state has to put up 50% of the dollars. I mean, because it's a 1-for-1 match.
For a lot of cases, yeah. Maybe Renny wants to jump in. For a lot of the situations or the items that are funded, they are like a 50-50 match.
Yep. The other thing that the budget does is it perpetuates the myth that we do not have the revenues to support these programs by implementing irresponsible tax cuts totaling $100 million. It reduces the business enterprise tax. It reduces the business profit tax. And in the case of the business profits tax, and I'll show you a slide later, that benefits large national and multinational corporations the most. The Republicans like to say that we have to cut taxes because it helps the small business owners. Well, it does, but not as much as it benefits national and multinational corporations. The budget also includes a phased elimination of the interest and dividends tax, which is a tax primarily paid by high net worth individuals. You know, the people that retire to New Hampshire with their large trust funds or nest eggs. Those are the ones that pay this tax, and those are the ones that will benefit by the elimination of this tax. And it's also proposing to reduce the meals and rooms tax. So in addition to not giving the towns the full 40% that they should be getting, they're also proposing reducing the tax by, I can't see it, I think it's 0.5%. We'll talk about this a little bit more. And then lastly, you know, they did something that I don't know if it's unprecedented, and Renny probably knows better than I do, but it's certainly not the way the budget's supposed to be put together. It includes in the there are two bills. There's HB1, which is the actual budget, and then there's HB2, which is language that you need to implement the budget. It's the legalities of making sure that, you know, everything that you include in the budget needs to be you know, gets included. Well, what they did in HB2 is they included some things that really have nothing to do with the budget, but you know, foster the kind of the right wing agenda in some of the areas that, you know, identified here. I mean, one is that it attacks access to reproductive health care by requiring that there be a physical separation between abortion care and preventive care. So you know, it's an attack at Planned Parenthood. Basically what they're saying is if Planned Parenthood is going to continue, well, they have to have a separate building that provides family planning, and then a separate building that would provide any kind of abortion services. And then it also fails to provide state funding to obtain federal funding that's vital for family planning providers across the state. And this is what Mike was talking about, is that, you know, there's federal funding available. The state has to pony up their share. And in this case, they've decided they're not going to pony up their share. It also includes language that bans individuals and agencies that contract with the state from talking about race, gender, or class. This is the I'm forgetting the term for it now. Nicole, what is this? This is the language in HB 544.
Divisive concepts.
Yes, yeah, it's that whole divisive concepts. Go ahead, Renny.
No, it's not critical race theory. It doesn't mention it, although it is. But what it is, it's an attempt to suppress any discussion about our history that is authentic, that deals with our legacy of slavery, that deals with our legacy of, you know, de facto apartheid, that deals with things like the attack upon the Enfield School for free black. It's to preserve white supremacy.
And again, it covers anybody that has that contracts with the state, and you know, and that includes schools as well as private businesses. So
I think it's part of a national movement. New Hampshire happens to be ground zero for it, but it's President Trump had a bad reaction to the 1619 project, which talked about 400 years of experience for African American people. So he basically put a gag order out on that, and this is a way to make that gag order put into effect throughout the states. And it's pretty insidious, particularly given the fact that we have this huge uptick in attacks against people of color. in our state that's going on. And this is kind of encourages that the shutting down of discussions about race and gender only encourages white nationalists and white supremacists.
And then lastly, it requires that all state and local governments reverse any COVID-19 violations and refund all fines. And that it's just, playing to the whole idea that, COVID-19 really wasn't real.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so again, these are the lowlights. I mean, there's other things that are included in there as well. Is there anything significant, Renny or Mike, that I might have missed in terms of, just, gross, malfeasance?
Yeah, I mean, I think the decision to make payments to reparations to FRM investors, to speculators in in what turned out to be a Ponzi scheme, taking $10 million out of the general fund dollars is a slap in the face to every victim of crime in the state of New Hampshire. New Hampshire's never provided a dime of general fund dollars to victims of rape, of domestic violence, of homicide, of drunk driving. And all of a sudden we've created this privileged class of speculators who now the state is going to make whole their losses, or attempt to make whole their losses, at a time when we cap the amount of money that an individual who's a victim of crime might receive at $40,000. This is an outrage.
This was a Ponzi scheme that occurred in what was it, the late 90s?
2000. It's like, let's have let's take dollars out of the federal treasury and make every victim of Bernie Madoff whole. I mean, it's so outrageous. It is just, again, it's an example of like who matters in the state, where the priorities are of this Republican budget, and just contrast the support for $10 million for speculators who got involved in a Ponzi scheme to turning a back on Hampton taxpayers and not making whole the promise to support a portion of the interest on the bonds that we've used to fix our sewer and water projects. And you can see, you see the contrast between what a Democratic budget will look like and what a Republican budget does.
Yeah, the $10 million payoff really is, it really is poor. It's bad. And people remember it was at the end of that Ponzi scheme, Attorney General Ayotte was involved in some ways, but she said she wasn't involved. So she got off scot-free on that one for any responsibility. But now they're talking about paying, the individuals that lost their gamble by trying to make money. But that's a real big item. And then you go back to some of the smaller ones of items that were tried to get into the budget that the Democrats tried to put in. One of them example is that actually tried to help, our people, the owners of restaurants and hotels and things. And that was to increase the amount of money that they would be able to keep from the money they collected from meals and rooms tax. So that they would actually make a little bit more money. It was only like 1%, Renny, right?
Yeah.
But it was rejected by the Republicans. When they're saying that they're trying to do these different tax decreases to help people in New Hampshire, this was one that could have actually helped. The reduction of the room and meals tax, by 0.5% or whatever that they say they're going to do now. That doesn't help anybody except people that, for the most part, that are traveling through the state. Mm-hmm. It hurts us. It's only a few ways that we collect money in this state, and that's one of them. So it's really kind of reversed. I think that on some of the issues that Tracy Emmerich was really involved with his position on finance, relative to. For example, stopping the money that was going to go, the $15 million for the water projects. I think that he's going to try to come back later and be a hero and say, well, now that we've reassessed the money that's come in, we're going to be able to reinstate this. And and probably try to look good on it, is my guess.
Yeah.
Yep.
But it really shouldn't have been done in the first place.
And, because I know, I don't know where we're going with this conversation, but as you alluded to, the budget's now in the hands of the Senate. And just some of the moves that have already been made that we know of in the Senate. One of the things that's that the Senate is poised to do is to include this voucher scheme that's really an attack on public education and a transfer of funds from the public school system into the private school system. And that's, again, it's wrapping it within the House Republican budget.
Yep.
Yeah,
Okay.
there's another budget that they're working with right now, the Senate is.
Yeah.
And that's the bill for the capital budget. And that has been changed, somewhat by them. But one of the reasons they're able to change it is that now we have a better idea of what federal money we're getting. And so they're actually taking some stuff out of it and switching it around on and taking advantage of the fact that we're going to have some money come, federal money coming. The money that a lot of them say we shouldn't get, that we shouldn't have, they're getting to play with now.
Right.
And so that particular budget there is got changed slightly, but some of the stuff we were really interested in has stayed in being paid for by the state and directly, and not going to be affected by the money that's coming in from the feds. But it's hard to tell right now until it finally shakes out.
Well, in an effort to be hopefully people won't laugh too much, but in an effort to be fair and balanced.
Yeah.
I did want to include a few positives, at least that I saw in there. And Mike, one of these is, I teed these up. One is clearly in Mike's wheelhouse and the other one's in Rennie's wheelhouse. I mean, the budget does include $20 million for some red listed bridges, which I think is a good thing, right, Mike?
Well, it's good. We've been having quite a project now trying to attack the red list bridges for a while. One of the ways that they were able to take care of it for a while recently was to, in the recent past, was to redesignate what's a red listed bridge and eliminate a bunch of them by their designation.
Yep.
But yeah, it's good to be going after them, and it'd be interesting to see if they're able to pick that up. Be honest with you, it's hard to tell sometimes what money they're adding into which budget for what reason. And because some things are traditionally handled in different ways, the 10-year plan is being developed now, and the red listed bridge for the most part are normally handled through that. So I don't know, just, between some of the different ways that you pay for these things, it's hard to tell because, again, they're adding some stuff into the budget that really shouldn't be there in a way, or traditionally haven't been. So to me, it's harder to tell until it actually finally gets passed by them, and then we try to hassle it out.
Okay. And then the other one is, for Rennie. I mean, there's $1 million for police body cameras. Again, I'm sure that's not enough, but it's certainly moving in the right direction.
And it's a huge step forward, because I think, the governor, in the aftermath of the Floyd murder a year ago, set up a law enforcement and community equity accountability LEAC commission to look into issues relating to how law enforcement functions. One of the recommendations was that we move forward with having body cameras worn by police. We know it works. 4 years ago, I sponsored a bill that actually established the protocol for use of police body cameras. I've tried a few times in the past to get money for the cameras. I'll give the credit to the governor. He actually put some in the budget. So this is a good thing. We know that body cameras work for everybody. They reduce crime and they provide for better interactions between law enforcement and civilians.
Okay. So in terms of, answering the question of where we're going with this, I mean, what we really want to try to do, and this goes back to the whole communication message. We want to during the month of June, we really want to kind of communicate to people about this budget. And we want to try to tie it as much as we can to Tracy Emmerich and Max Abramson.
Mhm. Great.
You know, the way we want to do that is we want to write a, you know, we have this article that we're now, the Hampton Union has now agreed to publish called The Blue View. So we want to publish an article that talks about a lot of the stuff that we're talking about here. We really want to try to get, you know, the folks on this call and others to write letters to the editor or do social media postings talking about these issues. And, you know, I'll go through these in a second. And then, as Erica alluded to, we want to do some paid ads.
Mhm.
And Erica, this may be a good time to get your ad teed up so that we can show it to people in a second. But, you know, I think the message that we wanted to try to convey to people was, you know, we want people basically to ask the question, ask these questions. So asking, you know, Hampton, you know, asking Tracy Emmerich, you know, why did he lead the fight to deprive Hampton of $570,000 in water project funds? And why did he vote to raise Hampton's property taxes by $1 million? And I think we want to do that now before he gets the opportunity that Mike was alluding to say, well, you know, I was against it before I was for it. Because, you know, when the budget, you know, when the Senate passes over its budget and he votes, he has a second chance to vote, he might change his mind. Well, he never should have voted for it in the first place. So we want to try to make that point. It's a little harder with Max because Max did not vote for the budget. But, you know, as Renny mentioned in, I think our last meeting, you know, Max never votes for the budget because any budget is too much money. So the angle with Max is, you know, asking him why did he spend so much time trying to restrict our voting rights and other crazy things, and so little time fighting to prevent Hampton's property taxes from going up and from those in Seabrook and Hampton Falls? Why wasn't he working harder with his Republican colleagues to persuade them that they shouldn't be doing this? You know, because it hurts the people, it hurts his voters.
Mhm.
We want to ask both Emmerich and Aberson, you know, why do Republicans insist on giving tax breaks to large multinational corporations and highest net worth individuals? Why are we cutting social services during a national pandemic? You know, where were those people that are needed mental services get care? And then lastly, how do they reconcile their support for small government and less government interference with efforts that restrict what we can talk about or what we can say about race, gender, and class, and where women can go to get their health care? You know, how does that reconcile?
Mhm.
And then the last message is basically the question is to the people of Hampton, basically. So is this what you were expecting when you elected these guys? Did you elect them because you wanted your property taxes to go up? You know, we want to start driving that point home, and we want to do it now so that next year, you know, we can kind of, you know, just keep reiterating the point.
Because I just think I thought you might with Tracy. What's really good is that, you know, he's on the tape tells the tale. He's on the video where he stands up on the floor and urges the House to beat back what was then the amendment that was offered by Peter Leishman. But you can see the contrast. One speaker talks about, and this will cost Hampton, you know, over $500,000, and then you see Tracy Emmerich standing up and say, "Vote down this amendment."
Yeah, we got to find that video. I kind of looked quickly and I really couldn't find it, but we'll have to find that.
All right. If you can't, I mean, I can try and ask not this week, but maybe next week.
Yeah, I mean,
if
you can
find it for me and cut it out.
That would be great. I mean, that would be ideal. And I mean, that's a paid ad that's, you know,
right.
We'd love to run.
Good.
So,
so we can.
So, Erica, do you want to show that ad now?
Yeah, I'd love to. I'd love to give it a try. I think we can all recognize my tech skills are somewhat limited, but a couple of things, a couple of caveats here. for the people who are going to be watching this. Chris, if you can give me permission to share, that'd be great.
Yep.
Number one, the attention span for people online does not exceed 60 seconds. So we have a very tight timeline with which to work. If we provide a tome, it's really not possible to keep people engaged. So we're trying to do sharper ads that will get more distribution. So we can't, well, all those subjects that Chris covered are brilliant. We can't fit them all into one ad. There's some other things that we're going to be doing. So this is the first ad, and it's, I want to say, rough cut here. We still have a couple of changes to make, including we've got an edit to do on Max Abramson's vote against the budget. It was a procedural issue, and we'll get that cleaned up. But I want to thank Mike. So this is a promotional, this is highlighting one of our great state reps in Hampton. We'll do another one with Renny around budget issues, and then we'll do one with Tom Loftman, probably around childcare, like definition of, well, it's working family issues, I believe was the subject, but we're doing these sequentially. Separately, we're going to do these very focused contrast ads with the Republicans that call out Tracy Emmerich for his votes, that call out Max Abramson for being whatever Max Abramson is. Okay, so let me see. I'm not sure that this will work, but I'm going to give it a try. And I just want to say again, please forgive me if it doesn't work. I've never tried to share video before, and it's rough cut still. Let's see if we can make this work. Mike, you paying attention?
I'm trying to look up something on some votes that Max had made. I got to see if I can find it later.
Okay. I'm gonna restart this.
You want me to start? Okay, good.
We want to listen to you, Mike.
Oh,
I don't have any volume, is there?
Yeah, can't. Yeah, there's a trick to playing
You have to
video,
click the
Erica.
button.
What is it? What is it, Chris?
I'm not sure. I can't remember.
At the bottom left corner, when you share the screen, you have to click share sound and optimize video on the bottom left.
Okay, let's try this again.
Do I have to do that?
Nope.
Erica,
Share screen, and
on the left corner, I think you'll see two little click boxes.
yeah, it's not giving me the optimize for video clip, but let's see if this works better. And thank you, Nicole, for the tech advice there.
Yep,
Much
lots of-
appreciated. All right, 3, 2, 1. Let's restart this. Let me know if the sound doesn't work.
we have some real significant projects Hampton does in the present 10-year plan, and we hope to get some more additional ones in soon. But the biggest one that we have in the 10-year plan right now is the Seabrook Hampton Bridge. It gets a tremendous amount of traffic, especially in the summer, and it really is important to keep that traffic moving. Design that they're thinking about using, it's almost finalized 100% now, is in the order of magnitude of $70 million. That affects our pocketbook here in Hampton. Another is some of the wastewater and waste treatment funding that has been given typically, and it's, even though it's a small amount, it makes a big difference to us. It was a couple $100,000 a year that we were hoping to get towards some of the projects we have in place. Both Tracy Emmerich and Max Abramson voted for the budget, which removed payments for those projects. There are several actions that have been taken which are going to affect our property taxes. And it happens to be that, and that's one of them, because we are still going to do those wastewater projects, and it's going to increase our property taxes. I don't see how it can do anything but that.
I want to know who that guy is, because man, he like knows what he's talking about.
He's
Oh, yeah,
articulate as hell, and there is one edit that needs to happen in there, Mike. I think the subpar videographer might have asked a question in a weird way that got the and Max voted against it. So we're gonna cut one of those sentences and probably overlay a graphic on that so that it doesn't jump around too much. But
I don't know, why did you allow me to keep my grenade in the background? That's what I was wondering.
because we're tough, we're pro-military, Mike.
Oh, yeah, hoorah.
I
No
thought
more
you,
of that.
and I thought you always, I thought you always carried your gun when you were doing a video.
I have, but I had the hand grenade in the corner, so I figured that would be enough.
Okay. All right.
So this hasn't gone live yet, and I'm sorry, Mike, I just got this. Mike needs to give final sign off on it. And anyway, these are the types of ads that we want to be playing that are soft promotions of our candidates, that are educational and talking to people about sort of single issues. So this is about budget and infrastructure and impacts on Hampton. We can't cover everything in one ad, but this is the sort of content that we're going to be working on moving forward.
I think I speak on behalf of everyone. We want to see the attack ad.
Well, that's going to be a little more bloody. I need that video from Renny, you and your staff, and we'll get the attack on Tracy going.
Okay.
Okay, so I'm gonna take the screen back, Erica, if you can
Great.
let me have it.
Did anybody have any questions or comments on that, or you like feeling good about this?
I feel
Yes.
good about it. I feel really good about Mike Edgar being in the video. I think he's absolutely handsome. Am I the only one that thinks he's absolutely handsome?
God.
So the rest of this presentation, and I will I will email this to all of you, if you're interested. But the rest of it is just background information, and let me see if I can try to whip through it as quickly as I can, just to give you a flavor of it. I mean, as I said, I mean, a lot of this stuff is pulled from, or everything, all the charts that you're seeing is pulled from the New Hampshire Fiscal Policy Institute.
Mhm.
Here's their website. They have a wealth of information, good organization, and certainly worth donating to if you have the resources. So this is just in the way of background. I mean, this is the state's fiscal budget. It consists of a variety of different funds. And I will show you later where the money is actually coming from, but this is kind of the buckets that it gets put into. There's the general fund. The Education Trust Fund is the biggest single fund. And then, you can see these other funds, which are, places where, money gets put and they're only supposed to be used for specific purposes. And that usually gets amended on occasion, but this is where these are the funds that the money goes into. This is I thought this was interesting because this is the inflation adjusted revenue of the state of New Hampshire. It's really the Education Trust Fund and the general fund. And what's really interesting about this is you can see that if you compare the funding level in 2020 with the funding level in 2006, it's actually lower. So we're spending less money than we did in 2006 on an inflation adjusted basis. And I think that really gets at what is, kind of the devious scheme, if you will, that, I think is behind the Republican budgets. They have, at least since 2010, they've been pretty consistent in saying that they want to, quote, starve the beast. That, their goal is to deprive the state government of as much money as possible. And in doing so, what that does is it means that the state can't provide the services that it needs to provide for the common good in an efficient way, which then perpetuates the myth that, well, the problem, why should we be spending money on government because government is inherently bad? And, so, you can see that it's been pretty consistent that we've been depriving the state of government, except for a few times when Democrats were in control and were able to, maybe ooch it up a little bit. What's interesting about, so this is where the money gets spent. This is how the money gets spent. Health and Human Services is by far the biggest chunk of the budget, 44%. The next biggest is education. The next biggest is justice and public protection, which my friend Renny would tell you basically is to, stick too many people in jail. And then you can see the rest of it. But health and human services is where the action is. That and education. Between the two of them, that's 67% of the budget. The budget for 2022, fiscal year 22 and 23, which is starting in July, is 3% lower than the budget that we're operating under right now. The budget we're operating under right now was passed in September of 2019. And I went back and I looked at the general cost of living increase since September 2019 to April 2021. It's 3.8%. So the budget has essentially gone down by 4% in terms of what the money can actually buy. So again, starving the beast. And this is just a repeat of this was a repeat of what I talked about on the social services. This is a slide that I think is pretty powerful. 2021, this is what was authorized, that the Department of Health and Human Services is authorized to spend. Every agency is asked, what do you need to meet your current needs? And what additional needs do you have that you would like to see in the budget? For 2022, the Department of Health and Human Services, asked for, about $2.95 billion, which is this blue column here. The governor in his budget met that need. He said, okay, I'll give you that much money. The House in the budget that they passed, reduced that amount by about $200 million. So if you compare the orange bar to the blue bar, there isn't even enough money for the department to meet the commitments that it has.
Yeah.
So property taxes, we talked about this quite a bit. This is a chart that just shows what's been going on over the years in the way of revenue being passed from the state to municipalities. And, one of the ways that the state balances its budget and quite frankly cuts its budget is it reduces expenses in these areas, which then puts an added burden on the towns. And, one of the biggest areas that, doesn't get enough discussion these days, except from, people like Renny, is the elimination of the retirement contribution. You can see that back in 2007, that was a sizable chunk of money. That was eliminated in 2011. Single biggest tax increase on local governments, probably in New Hampshire history, and it was implemented by a Republican legislature.
And voted for by Tracy Emmerich.
Yeah, there you go. These are the grants. These are the different grants. I don't know why I felt the need to have to identify them by grant number, but these are the, when we talk about the $527,000 that Hampton's losing, it's these specific projects. If nothing else, it shows that we have the numbers. These are the changes in state education. And you can see that, both the governor and the House were very interested in reducing adequate education aid by $100 million. Their argument, I guess, is that money is not necessary to deliver an adequate education. So you can cut it out. The reality is most school boards would argue that no, that is necessary.
Yeah.
And so who makes up the difference? The local property taxpayers. Rooms and meals tax, you can see that, it's been going up. So, again, that myth that we don't have the revenues, it's a myth. The revenue's there. We just choose to spend it, differently. So,
Mhm.
the argument that, oh, well, we can't afford to give the towns the 40% that they're entitled to. Well, that's ridiculous because the money's been going, the revenue's been going up. They're just using it to, fund other crazy things like, business tax reductions.
Hey, Chris, I just want to go back or just note that, you talked about the state breaking its promise to contribute to the retirement costs of police, fire, and teachers. Again, this year, there was a proposal to have the state pick up 5% of those costs. It would have, that would have helped Hampton enormously. And again, Tracy Emmerich and Max Abramson voted against that.
Okay. Just I'm writing. Okay. Great. Revenues. So again, this myth that we don't have the revenues is ridiculous. The revenue's there. It's just we choose to keep giving it away. This is where the revenues come from in the state. The largest and for those of you that are more numerically inclined, these are the numbers. Business profits tax generates $450 million in revenue. Rooms and meals tax is $315 million. Business enterprise tax is $258 million. The interest and dividends tax is the smallest, but it's still $125 million. Well, what does this budget include? This budget includes a reduction in the business profit tax to 7.2. What is it? I can't see. No, I've got it. I thought it was 7.6%. And then there's also a reduction in the business enterprise tax. The business profits tax, this chart is a little busy, but it tells a story. What it says is that 0.1% of the filers, of the people that are filing, they end up paying 49% of the tax. And those are businesses that have a profit of at least $12 million. Well, those aren't your mom and pop shops in downtown Hampton. Those are large national and multinational corporations. So they're paying the most in the tax, the most of the taxes. They're going to get the biggest benefit from any reduction. Not the small guy. The big guys are going to get the reduction. And this is where you can see it. These are the people that pay the majority of the taxes. 62% of the taxes are paid by large multinational, multi-state, and multinational corporations. The small guys, they pay 3%. So the largest players are the ones that are going to benefit the most.
Mm-hmm.
The business and enterprise tax, it has a little bit of a broader base. So it benefits a broader segment of the population. But even here, 50%, 0.81% of the filers are going to get 53% of the benefit.
Mm-hmm.
The interest and dividends tax. It's a 5% tax on interest, dividend, and distribution income from assets. So in order to pay this tax, you have to have assets, mostly stocks and bonds. And you can see that, over the years, it's been a pretty, it's generated a pretty healthy amount of revenue. Well, the budget is looking to eliminate that. And here again, you can see, who benefits the most. Well, it's the people that have $200,000 or more of assets that are paying basically 50% of the tax.
Mm-hmm.
And if you go down here, you'll see that the elimination of the interest and dividends tax is going to proportionally benefit high income individuals.
Mm-hmm.
The people that are going to get the biggest benefit are the people that have the highest assets. And again, you know, most of the, not most of those, a lot of those people are people that move here to retire. So, you know, they're getting a benefit at the expense of people that have lived here forever in terms of reduced services. I'll just skip through this one. I put this here because, you know, you'll hear Republicans say, well, you know, yeah, but we don't have the money. I mean, it's a pandemic, you know, and, you know, whatever. Well, guess what? We're doing all right. We've got, you know, revenues are coming in. So there, you know, there really is no reason why we have to give the revenue away. So again, I mean, that's some more background, maybe more than you wanted. As I said, I'm happy to share it with you, you know, if you'd like. But we really, you know, if any of this is kind of, you know, got your blood boiling, we're really looking for people that are willing to take this information and, you know, start crafting some messages to our, you know, Republican state reps, and also to the people of Hampton, saying, you know, this is what's going on, and, you know, is this what you wanted? So who's ready to volunteer? This is when everybody has to tie their shoes. Well, you know, we're not looking for you to sign up necessarily today, but you know,
Why not,
do,
Chris?
what's
Why,
that?
Why aren't you looking for people to sign up today?
Well,
There's no better time than tonight to have people sign up, don't you think?
well spoken. That's why you're the leader.
That's why my blood, Chris, you got my blood boiling all over again, and I saw it happen in action, and I'm so pissed off. I want someone else to stand up and like whack Tracy and whack Max for what they're doing to the people of our town.
Well, you heard it, folks. I mean, we're, you know, and we have got, you know, a couple folks, Maureen DeLuca, Nicole Dugan, have volunteered to kind of coordinate a kind of a letter to the editor effort. You know, Mary McCarthy and I are both co-chairing the communications committee. You know, we'll work with folks if you know, you want to say something, but you don't know exactly how to say it. We'll work with you to help you do it. It's really important that, you know, that Max and Tracy and the voters hear from not just the same people over and over again. That they understand, so that it starts to drive the point home that, you know, it's not just a few crazy Democrats, you know, well-known crazy Democrats that are spouting off about this. It's broader than that. And that's really what we're hoping that we can accomplish, is that we can get, you know, people to see that, you know, that this has a broad base of support.
Chris, so what you're asking for us to do is to write letters to the editor. How many on the budget, because that's the theme for this month? How many of those is ideal for this month? Our target is what, for 3, 4?
You know, it's not just letters to the editor. It's you know, you know, we call them letters to the editor, but yeah, we want letters to the editor. We want letters to the editor, but we also want people to be posting to social media. So I mean, I would say, you know, if we got 10, that would be fabulous.
10. So how many? Could you break it down for me? How I'm very like simple. So how many letters to the editor do we want, and then treat the social media separately?
2 letters. You know, if we could get like 2 letters to the editor per week, and then we got, you know, I don't know. You know, I hadn't necessarily thought through this, so I probably should have done that.
And many social media posts.
And then and then, you know, and then linking to those, and then additional social media posts. You know,
Great.
You know, if you could get
sign me up for one of the letter. If you will share that great presentation, I will write a letter to the editor.
Okay,
Yes, and I hope others
okay.
will join
So
me.
that's one.
Okay,
Who else is ready to step up?
Chris,
Yes.
I just assumed write a letter to the editor, but I need to know what the guidelines are, exactly what you're looking for, dates and things like that.
Okay. Yeah, we can get you that information.
Okay, sounds good.
Yep.
Yeah, also I had a question.
Sure.
What's the difference between a red listed bridge and a yellow listed bridge?
Mike?
Okay, just unmuted again. There's classifications from 5, down to 1. And 5 obviously is the worst, and those are the ones that are quoted on the red list. And it has to do with the classification of various portions of the bridge, starting out with, well, you can start out with the foundation, and then you have the superstructure, and then you have like the deck. So they all get rated and they get inspected. When they're bad enough, when they're inspected and they look bad enough in certain cases, especially like in the foundation and the superstructure, then they get rated, worse. And the worst of the bunch are red listed bridges. They what I talked about before, saying that there was a reclassification, there was a bunch more red listed bridges, but they included ones that had been downgraded in capacity, especially some smaller ones. So they went and they said they don't count. Because downgrading in capacity doesn't count as a red listed bridge anymore. So then the number of red listed bridges jumped down. But it's based on the rating of the various portions of the structures.
Are the Republicans vulnerable to charges that they haven't appropriated enough money for red listed bridges and hence are endangering the people of the state?
Well, no, there's many cases of where we're underfunding so many things, whether it's the roofs on half of bridges, half of the buildings that we have in the damn state are bad. So, we're trying to repair them. So if I don't believe that would be a correct statement, Andy, because there's so many other cases of places where we have deficiencies in our structures that, nobody would want to do anything because they'd be liable for everything. So I don't know, Bev hopefully probably knows what I'm talking about. It's
It'd make for a great ad, though.
but it's not. I don't think it's the approach to take of because you're restricted by the amount of money you have, and the Republicans are real good at restricting that amount. That money is restricted when Democrats are in control also, because you just all of a sudden just don't produce money. So we have red listed bridges when we're in control. The point is to be working with DOT and others to have a program to try to at least decrease the number. And right now we do have programs to decrease the number of red listed bridges. We have red listed bridges both on the state side and the municipal side. Okay, and then there's special funding to try to help the municipalities to try to take care of some of their red listed bridges. Here in Hampton, we don't have any municipal red listed bridges. Okay, so I don't think that is an approach that, that would be justified, Andy.
Okay.
Okay. If anyone else is interested in, writing letters to the editor, just reach out to either me or, Mary McCarthy, and, we'll get going. And also don't be surprised if we may reach out to some of you directly and see if we can convince you to do that. We do have just a couple other things that wanted to cover real quickly.
Well, Chris, I just want to say, I thought you did a really good job with the presentation. You should work with the New Hampshire Fiscal Policy Institute.
Yeah.
That,
Chris,
that sounds like a job, Renny, and I'm not doing jobs anymore.
Oh yeah.
No, I would suggest it as a full-time volunteer.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, I wanted to say there we are approaching the position though, the situation where we are really going to be hurting for some of the money that we need to repair, for example, our roads. Because we have borrowed into the future, we're paying up on a lot of our loans. One of the ones that we have through the feds has been, we've been able to be getting, money from them on a yearly basis, and pretty soon we're going to have to stop paying it back. And we took all the money up front, and then so that we are not going to have that money to be doing a lot of the, for example, betterment type programs, projects to keep our bridges, our roads in particular in good shape. A while ago, somehow there was a quote gas tax, but it's really the road toll was increased. It was like 4.5 cents or something like that. Portions of that was divvied out, throughout the state various ways. Well, the payments from that is going to be decreasing and be, I think it's in 28 or something like that, 26. We're going to be losing the money from that because it's going to be going to it. The money is going to be spread different. So we're going to have less money coming in for our roads that way. So there are different like time, tax collecting or whatever, alarms collecting, that where it's going to get worse unless somehow we come up with some other ways to get revenue.
Right.
And the DOT is getting cut all the time. So I just wanted to mention that there are some things that's probably going to come right after Sununu gets to be a senator, see, and the state's really in crap because of all the stuff he did. He's just going to wash his hands, and he's going to make, and the people that are in charge at the time are going to look bad. But so that, that type of thing, you can kind of see that or prophesize what, is going on. So.
Yep.
I
Okay.
do think we need to be prepared to sing praises of the Biden administration when the jobs and infrastructure bill passes and we use federal funds to address some of our shortcomings in our transportation infrastructure.
Yep.